recording. Right, this is a video that will be showing how to use the SchillerMS2015 ECG spirometry unit. We will go through using everything step by step, explaining how to put all the leads in, how to record the ECG, how to transfer the ECG onto a memory stick, and then from the memory stick how to transfer the ECG onto EMIS web. We will try me in slow and repeat all the tricky sort of processes again. So what I wanted to show now with the ECG machine was how to put paper in and out of the machine. And Jazz, if you can just point out the lever that you have, this is on the side of the machine, opposite the on-off switch side. So this lever, you just pull it upwards like so, just a gentle bit of pressure, and then the slide where the paper goes, that sort of falls open. Then there's a little plastic tongue in there that you can pull out. So you just pull the tongue out, so you can see the writing on that. And then we've got a ream of paper ready. So if you can just show the paper, so you take one slip of paper down, and at the bottom of the paper you can see the writing, and that should be the right way up, as you can see here now, Schiller, Switzerland, along the bottom of the paper. Yeah, so you sort of match this up with the bottom of the machine. So if you just turn around the machine, so the bottom of the paper lines up with how it will come out of the machine. So just swizzle the whole thing around. So that's how your paper is going to be coming out of the machine, and that's how it's going to be inside the machine. So just going, that's fine, Jess. Just leave. That's fine. So coming closer, you can. This is how the paper will be inside the machine in this orientation, with the Schiller column at the bottom, the Schiller writing at the bottom. Just okay. Just hold it there, Jazz. So you can see how Jazz is now inserting the paper into the side. So if I just come round, then I can see how you're doing that exactly. Yeah, so now the thing to note there was you were putting the paper above the tongue, on top of the tongue, yeah? So we can just see that the tongue is underneath. So you put the paper above the tongue. You then take out one piece of paper, roll that out, take that out, and then just push the rest in along with the tongue that was underneath. Then you just close that, and that will just close with a click there, and that's it. The paper is in. Now if you want to take the paper out, again just pull that lever upwards. Let me just get my orientation right, okay? And then just literally tilt the machine and the paper just pops out. Okay. And Jazz, if you could just show us how you take the tongue of the machine. So we take out the tongue on the machine. So you take out the tongue so it looks like that. And I'll just zoom in on that. So you can sort of see that there. So that's the tongue. Now the papers should be orientated so that the writing on the paper is at the bottom. So you can see the writing at the bottom going in just like that. Okay. And I'll just put the whole lot in. And then that's that. So the paper's in, easy in and out. The whole thing takes about 15 seconds to do. Okay, so Jazz, if you could just turn the machine on. So now the machine is coming on, and what you're seeing is just the default screen, which is your standard screen with all your leads that you'll be recording, and this will be the default every time you turn the machine on. So you've got buttons at the bottom, which is the button that we're pointing at right now is your menu button, and next to that we've got your patient button when you need to put patient details in, and there's a manual button, which is when you want to manually record an ECG, and there's a start button when you want to start recording the ECGs. But we'll go through those individually as we record an ECG and show you how to do that, how to use those buttons. Bearing in mind this is a touch screen, so the whole screen is fairly sensitive. Things to note when the screen first comes on. Now in the top left hand corner, which I've just focused on now, is the myofilter, which should state myofilter off. However, if you press this, if you would just touch it, it becomes myofilter on, and this is just to help remove ECG artifact. So default position is myofilter off, but if you're finding that your ECG has got a lot of wiggly baselines, you can try turning that on and it may flatten it and smooth it for you. And again, in the top left hand corner, it should say resting ECG. So that's the screen you're on right now, resting ECG. So you can have other default positions like spirometry or a rhythm ECG, but when you're taking a simple 12 lead ECG, it should state resting ECG. Then the other thing to note is in the middle of the screen is your calibration, and now your default position should be as is, 10 millimeters per millivolt and 25 millimeters per second speed. Now if you just touch those, you can change the calibration, so you can make the ECG look smaller or bigger as you wish, but the default position is 10 millimeters per millivolt, so if you don't touch this, that's what it will stay at. Then on the top right hand corner, you have your ECG leads. Now these are red at the moment because they're not connected. Once they're connected, they become white, and that's the C leads are your chest leads, and the right, left and F lead is for your limb leads. Now underneath that you've got a little icon which is your screen display. Now at the moment this is a default position, but if you just touch that, you can see the display changes. Just hold that a second. And now you've got a different display, and if you click that again, it changes the display again, and if you click that again, it changes again, and if you click it again, you'll go back to your default position. Alright, so we're at our default screen now. So that's your basic screen setup. Next we'll talk about how to connect your leads. So Jazz is first going to connect the power lead. Now this has got a flat surface to it, so the flat edge when it's connected should be facing downwards. So Jazz, if you could just turn the whole thing around so people can see what you're connecting. So it's on the top left hand corner of the screen of the machine. So if we just do that. Okay, so if you could do that, just leave it there, just take it out and push it back in. So facing down, the flat surface should be facing down, and it should go in easy with very little resistance and a slight click, and that's that. So that's the power lead that's gone in. Okay, let's start recording. Okay, so now Jazz is going to connect the ECG cable, and that's the socket that says ECG on it, and it's a matter of just matching it up. and that again goes in fairly easy, and you just need to give it a few screws to get it in, and that's it, and that's connected. So that was at the bottom right hand of the machine. You've got the ECG cable locked in. Okay, so that's the ECG cable locked in. Straightforward. Let it start. Right, next Jazz is going to show us how she puts in all the patient details. So this is the default screen that you see when you switch the machine on. Okay, Jazz, and first thing you press is patient. Let me just focus in on the screen that you see. So these are the patient details, okay? So in patient data, the patient number is the EMIS number that you put in. So into this we will make up an EMIS number. So that's the EMIS number. We are not putting in names, the last name or the first name of the patient. So as a default, I'd suggest you can just put in an X and an X. Just put in the last name X and the first name X, so that we know we haven't just missed those boxes but intentionally have put in names. So say born the 25th of December 2010. And next we'll put in the height and weight. Now it's important to put in the height and weight as it gives us an idea of the patient's size and how that may be affecting the ECG when it comes to interpretation. So that's fine. Now we put all the details in, and then it's important to know that Jazz just clicked the downward cursor to put in the remaining details. Important to put in the gender of the patient and the ethnicity. So you have two options for ethnicity. One is white and one is black, and at the moment we are classifying Asian patients into the black category, as we don't have a third option at the moment. So important next to put in whether the patient has a pacemaker or not. Again, this affects interpretation, so we'll say no, and we don't need to put in the remaining information slots. You don't have to fill in, for example, to say whether the patient's on digoxin or not. This is what digitalis is, which is digoxin. If the patient is on this and you put this information in, it will help the machine with interpretation, but is not absolutely necessary. So those are all the details which are mandatory that you have to put in. The next stage will be to connect up the ECG machine to a patient who will shortly arrive on this bed. Right, so the ECG machine is now connected to a patient, and you can see there's a trace in the background. We've not changed anything. So now once that's connected, we press ECG, and then you start seeing the trace that you're going to get. So just zooming in so you can just see the whole screen. So things to check. Starting at the top left hand corner, the heart rate 75, 78, 76 beats per minute. You can see just on the ECG underneath there's a little bit of baseline artifact, probably from muscle tremor, and at that point you can now turn the myofilter on to see if that makes a difference, and it made, with an eye of faith, a slight difference to the baseline. It just looks slightly less irregular. So then just checking at the top, in the middle of the screen you should have the patient's details. So that was our EMIS number and the name. Then now remembering the names, we're putting in our XX, so it's the EMIS number which should be correct for the patient. Immediately underneath that should be the calibration, which is 10 millimeters per millivolt and 25 millimeters per second. And then going across to the right hand side of the screen, you can see all the leads are now white, which means they're all connected. Now if we were to take off lead V1, you can see you've lost that lead and it goes red. So if you can disconnect that again, Jazz, and it goes white again. So once you've got all your leads and you're reasonably happy with the quality of the ECG, which you are, then you press start. Once you press start, it acquires the ECG within a matter of seconds, and this is what we call a simultaneous ECG recording of all the leads in one go. So just focusing down one moment, just so you can just see the leads. Now here you can see limb leads 1, 2 and 3, and AVR, AVL and AVF, so those are your 6 limb leads. But you also need to see your chest leads, so you press that button to see your chest leads. So you can see that you've got all your chest leads and the quality of the recording is not bad. So now you've got your ECG which you're happy with, that you want to store this. So then you press accept, and so once accept is pressed, the ECG then goes into storing mode, and the data has now been stored on the machine. Okay, so that's if you're happy. Now the other thing to say is, say if you want to have a hard copy or a paper copy of this ECG, you can press start again, and if you now are happy with that and you want a paper copy of that, you can press print, which is at the bottom of the screen, and if you press print, it'll start printing off the ECG, as you can see from the left hand side of the machine. And then once you're happy that you've got enough, you can then press stop, which is the bottom of the screen, and then it stops. Okay, so that's the recording of the ECG. So next we'll talk about reviewing the ECG in the memory of the machine. So next we're going to access the stored ECG, have a quick review of that ECG while it's on the machine, and then transfer it across to a memory stick. For that we have to press the menu button, which we're pressing right now. So when you press that, that will give you a menu which says memory or rhythm. Then you click on memory. Once you've clicked on memory, then the memory appears. Now on the memory you can see a number of things. So you can see the ECGs that you've taken. We've taken 2 of our patients, so you can see those on the left hand side. So that's a green icon with the patient lying on it, and the green icon with the patient lying on it is a resting ECG. You can also see brown icons with patients lying on them, and those are rhythm ECGs, and if you see a pair of lungs on the icon, that's spirometry. So just focusing out, next to that what you can see is the date that the ECG was taken and the time it was taken. So this is an image of the ECG that we've taken. So you can see again you can see initially the limb leads, but now we're going back to the patient again. Okay, so starting with the patient, so if we just select the patient whose ECG we want to review, so we've clicked the patient we want to review that ECG. Let's have a look at that ECG. Now let's have a look at the ECGs, Jazz. Okay, so we just click on that patient, and then once you clicked on that patient, we can see their ECG. So you can see all their details at the top, the patient number, the height and weight, so you've got all the details. And at the bottom you can then flick through the different pages by just pressing the forwards and backwards keys. So there are the measurements. These are all the ECG recordings that you're getting. So that's all your ECG recordings. Once you're happy with all the ECG recordings, you can now transfer this across onto a memory stick, and Jazz is now going to plug this into the memory stick slots at the back. So if you just plug that in, you have 4 USB slots at the back, which I'll focus in on. Okay. Is it not going wanting? Okay, just show us the slots first, Jazz. Just a bit closer. I'm just seeing them now. I'm just focusing in on the slots. So you can see the USB slots there. It says USB, and then just match up your memory stick to any of those slots, and it should just slide in. There we go. So it slides into place, and memory stick is lighting up to say that it's connected and powering up. So we go back to our memory screen. We highlight the ECG. Just show us that again. So that's the ECG we're interested in. So that's the memory. So we've just highlighted that ECG. You could highlight both of them if you wanted. And then the next thing you do, once you've highlighted the ECG, just one moment, you then press the, if you just press the icon, which the button which says PDF to USB stick, you press that with the icons highlighted, and that should now start transferring the data or the ECG across to the memory stick. And as you can see there, it's saying data output, which means the ECG is now being moved across to the memory stick as a PDF file. Okay, so transmission is done. So both ECGs have been transferred across, and you end up at the back of the memory screen. Once you've transferred them across, you can then either, if you want, you can delete straight off. So you can just highlight the ones you want to delete, and there's a button of delete at the bottom. But I would suggest to delete after you transfer the ECG from the memory stick onto EMIS-Web. But I'll leave that up to you. Okay. So now that's done. Okay, then we can just unplug the memory stick, and next we'll show you how to upload the ECG from the memory stick onto EMIS-Web. Right, so next we're going to upload the PDF ECG files from the memory stick onto EMIS-Web, and we'll just do a quick demo of how this is done. So if Jazz, you can plug in the memory stick into the computer, into a USB port, and then the next thing to do, I'm going to focus down on, so if you just slow down, Jazz, you're going to the My Computer shortcut, so you double click on that. If you just hold it there, then you should be able to see your ECG stick or your memory stick, and in our case it's labeled Jazz ECGs, so that's where it is. So you double click that. When you double click that, that opens up, and in that you have a folder called export, and that's where all your ECGs from your machine are kept. Now those are our ECGs that are inside the memory stick. On the files you will have the EMIS number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next to that you've got the year, month, the date, and the time the ECG was taken. So those are, so using those EMIS, using the EMIS number, we can now go into EMIS. So if you go into EMIS now, Jazz, so we go into EMIS, and we using the EMIS number we find our patient, and for demonstration purposes our patient is called Minnie Mouse. So we've gone into Minnie Mouse's EMIS record, and in that then we want to attach the ECG PDF file. So the ECG PDF file is a document, so we go across to documents, which Jazz has got the cursor on. So you double click on that. Once you've double clicked on that, you go across to the add button. If you just hold that there, Jazz. So you go across to the add button, and then you go, that gives you a drop down menu when you click on that, which says attach document. So you click attach document on that, and then that gives you a series of options of where to find your ECG files. Now your ECG files are in my computer, so if you can always click on there. So click on my computer, and then that gives you your memory stick. So then you double click on memory stick, and there are your files in export. So if you double click on export, those are your files in the export folder. Then double click the ECG you want to upload. So the ECG we want to upload opens up. Now on this window you have to fill out two further information slots. The first is the type of document you're attaching, and in our case it's a standard ECG. Then you go across to the source of the information, and this is Enki Medical Practice, and you'll put your practice into that. Once you've done that, you can then complete that by clicking a button right at the bottom. If you just wait a second, Jazz, there, that button at the bottom which says file, if you click that now, the ECG has been put onto the patient's EMIS record, and that's it, it's completed now. So you have attached your ECG in PDF format to the patient's EMIS records, and if required at this stage you can then task the clinician who requested the ECG with a message to say the ECG is now attached, and that's the task button right at the top. Could you just put the cursor over the task button? So that's the task button, so you click that, and then in that you can put in the task regarding which patient and to whom, regarding the message regarding the ECG interpretation, and that's it, all complete. So you've taken your you've done your ECG, you put it on a memory stick, and you've uploaded it onto the EMIS record for the patient. Many thanks for listening.